Hey y'all, we are back with another video. Of course, we're Sage and Rice. And this time we're gonna be talking about budgeting. Now, anybody who know me know that I am the king of budgeting. I mean, well, queen of budgeting. Depending on who you ask, but you know,
Queens of budget.
but I am good with budgeting my coin. Trust me. I ain't let no money slip between my fingers.
Right.
So this video is gonna be important for anybody who's looking to budget and just want to keep a better track of their money. So let's jump right in.
That's right.
Alright, so why should you be tracking your budget? It's a few different reasons why. One reason is that you want to track your spending, right? A lot of times we just swipe. It's hard to really see your money. You know, you out and about, you going to Starbucks, you going here, swipe, 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 and you have a general idea of what you have to spend, but you don't see how it adds up. So that's one big thing, is really to be able to track your spending. The second thing, to make sure that you're achieving the goals that you want to achieve. That's really huge. We have huge goals that we're trying to achieve in the next couple of years. And so we need to get started now on our budgeting to make sure that we're prepared for those goals. You'll be able to see that in the next video, which is going to be on our vision wall. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you got any personal goals that you're trying to achieve, it's really important to start tracking your money as soon as possible.
Yeah, he's always been really good with his money. I am now just gotten better with my money. And this budgeting tool is a simplified version of what we use, because we truly believe that, you know, look, whatever works for you is whatever works for you. But what we're going to show you, you can do it in Excel, Google spreadsheets, or even in paper, because, you know, whatever habit you can create around it is the best for you. I don't care what anybody says, do what works for you. Right. You'll see in one of our other videos, we talked about how I was able to pay off $85,000 of credit card and student loan debt in 3 years. 50,000 of that was credit card. And, you know, no matter how much money you make, it's the discipline that you have or you don't have that's going to make or break your budget. The goal is obviously, you know, to be able to bring to light what areas you need to work on and you need to improve on. And this is what we're hoping to be able to impart to you today.
And don't forget to go back and watch that video. How we paid off $85,000 in 3 years. Well, how Ryan paid off $85,000 in 3 years, all right?
We have created on Google Sheets, because we know that not everyone has Microsoft Excel. I only have Excel because of my work. I don't actually, I'm not cheap, but I don't feel the need to pay for it if I already have it through my job. But for a lot of people, Google Sheets is free. And it's fairly easy to use. Obviously, it's not as advanced as Microsoft Excel, but it does the job for what you're looking to do. What we're showing you here today is a simple sheet that we've created, essentially from a budgeting perspective. You know, in our last video, we talked about zero-based budget, which was popularized by Dave Ramsey. Essentially, you're talking about what are you making and what are you spending your money on, and dictating where every single dollar goes. Correct. Because if you don't dictate where it goes
out the window.
Exactly. You might as well just put it in the shredder. You know what I mean? So,
right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that we're going to be starting off on with any budget is you want to know how much income you're going to be bringing in. So that's going to be the income section.
Yeah.
Then the next section we have is, of course, going to be our fixed expenses. So you want to be able to plug in your fixed expenses. And then, of course, you have your variable expenses. And then what I think is very important is also having another area of the budget where you're able to track your expenses, right? So these are the individual purchases that you're making, every day, every other day, as you're just out and about. So we're gonna go into details of each section, but we just wanted to give that overview first. So let's start with the income section, right?
That's correct.
So let's talk about the income section. And if you notice, we say after taxes. So that's the money you bring home.
Right, whatever comes into your direct deposit or your check.
Correct. So traditionally, or most people tend to work a job, 9 to 5, whatever the case is. You may get paid weekly or bi-weekly. And so that's going to be the basis of the income you bring in. Now, you may have 1 or 2 jobs, right? Or you may have child support or some other income that's coming in. And so you want to be able to track all of that here. So you can see we put paycheck 1, paycheck 2, and then any other income. So any income you have is going to be tracked there. Yeah. And so that's going to give you the total amount of money that you bring in each month.
We talked about income. Now we talked about quote unquote fixed expenses.
Correct.
We put it in quotation marks because even though we only say it's fixed because it shouldn't really change on a month-to-month basis.
Correct.
You know, your rent, if you sign a lease or if your mortgage, you already know how much that's gonna be.
Right.
But we don't want to fall into the mindset of, well, this is fixed. For example, some people will say, well, my cable is fixed. But if you need to make adjustments and make, you know, kind of cut back on certain areas, it may be your cable, it may be your phone bill, it may be your rent, maybe, you know, for example, I lived with my sister for 7 years, even though I could have afforded to be able to get my own rent, my own apartment. And it was mainly because we were able to get an amazing apartment for a great price. And it allowed both of us to really save a lot of money. And that helped me in my budget and had more room for other things, right?
Yeah. And then always keep in mind as well, as we said about fixed expenses, it's fixed for that particular time period.
Right.
So what happens, for example, you may do your budget and realize I can save a little bit more money. When my lease is up, I'm going to go to a cheaper apartment, right? So it's fixed for the time period for which you have that lease, but you can make adjustments afterwards, which is
right.
very important. So, and that's a great thing about a budget is that you're able to come and have those realizations as you do your budget every single month, which is very important.
So fixed expenses, the first 2 items, this is a personal choice. I put there charity and tithe and savings. Even if you only put 1% of your total income, or even $5, the idea is that out of sight, out of mind. If you don't put it in there, both for charity and for savings, you may never ever do it, because a lot of people will say, well, I save whatever's left, but a lot of times there's nothing left. So I consider it as a fixed expense, so I know that no matter what happens, I'm allocating to those buckets already.
And then, of course, if you have car payments, if you have, insurance or any other expenses, that's going to be the same amount each month, and you can plan for a duration or a particular period of time. That's going to be in your fixed expenses in this particular section. And that's what you want to identify first.
Yeah. And as you know, everyone's life and situation is different, right? If you live in the suburbs, maybe you need a car. If you live in the city, we don't necessarily need a car, but maybe we need a Metro card. So, you know, this has to be customized based on your own situation. We put counseling in there because we go to counseling on a monthly basis, and that's something that we have committed to. So that's why it's part of our fixed expenses. We know how much we will spend on that. Vacation fund, same thing. A lot of times people will say, whether it's vacation or gifts, and we'll go to that a little bit deeper later on, but if you don't plan for it, you're always gonna end up in a negative. So if you know you are gonna go on a vacation, or if you want to go on vacation and it's gonna be even if it's for next year, for example, you know you're gonna spend $1,200 or whatever, you need to spend $100 per month. Well, you should start allocating that and putting it in your sheet, and figuring out whether, taking out the money, putting in an envelope somewhere, so you don't spend it, or knowing that it's part of your savings account, just so you have it there in place. And essentially, you have your total fixed expenses.
Next, you have your variable expenses. Now, I love variable expenses, and I'm gonna tell you, why. Because if I happen to really need to save more than what I'm able to save, or I'm looking to make some sort of adjustment, this is the area I have the most flexibility over. Yeah. And so that's why I really love the variable expenses. So you may be wondering, how do I come up with my variable expenses? I've never tracked a budget before. Well, a huge thing for this section is to go back and look at 3 months of your debit and or credit card statements and see what you're spending on groceries, restaurants, entertainment, shopping, any of these things, and then average it out. And then that's a great place to be able to start if you're a person who's brand new starting a budget, right? And so essentially what you'll find out is that the next month or the month after, if the budget is, too big or it's too small, you can always make adjustments for that particular area. So what would be considered part of your variable expenses? Well, this is going to be things such as your groceries, right? This is going to be gas. This is going to be possibly tolls that you have. This is going to
Uber.
Right, this is
It's a
going
big
to
one
be
these
Uber,
days.
and then your entertainment budget. How much do you spend
Right.
when you're out, right? You want to plan this aside of your budget because when you go out, you want to be able to have a good time, but be able to keep in the back of your mind how much you got to actually be able to spend while you're out. And so that's very important here.
Until you figure out how much you're spending on that, if you don't know where you're at, it's gonna be hard to figure out where you're going. For example, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna budget $300 for groceries next month." Well, what if you've been spending $600, right, for the last 3 months, and you didn't even realize that? It's gonna be, be easy on yourself.
Right.
Maybe.
You want to be realistic in your
Right,
budget,
yeah.
right? And you're not able to achieve your goal when you have to cut back somewhere, then you do want to look at particular sections in this variable expense where you can possibly cut back, right? So it may not be you're looking to save an extra $500. You may not take that whole $500 off entertainment. You may take a couple hundred off entertainment, maybe 100 off groceries, and slowly nip at it. So therefore you don't see a drastic change in any of these areas and feel like you're compromising having a good time or compromising, the meals or whatever you eat at home. So it's all about flexibility, adjustment, and setting realistic goals is vital for this area.
Yeah. For some of the people that we're mentoring, I've seen a situation where somebody at the beginning of the month will put, "Oh, I'm gonna put $500 in my savings account," but then at the end of the month, their total, the difference between their income and their expenses is negative 600. It feels like you're saving money, but at the end of the day, you're not because you're overspending on these
At
things.
least once a week, you want to track individual purchases you made in each of these areas. So for example, you can see we have groceries here, restaurants, entertainment, shopping, etc. And you just want to plug that. And you can see here on this tracking tool, the 50, the 10 here, it's letting you know at the bottom how much you have remained.
Before you even spend the money, right? Before you say, "Oh, I'm gonna get bubble tea," which is something that we both love. And
You wanna get bubble
I wanna
tea
get bubble
today.
tea afterwards. But I gotta look to see how much money do I have on restaurant and like for eating out or entertainment, right? And for example, if it's, and I've been through this situation, how I'm speaking from experience. I've been in situations where maybe it's the 28th of the month and I only have 2 more days, and I only have $5 left. Well, it's up to me. Your actions have consequences, and I've been in situations where I'm just gonna eat ramen for the next 2 days because I didn't have the discipline to properly budget for the whole month. And I only have $5 to spend.
Right.
But it's your money. It's really up to you. But it's gonna be about how adamant you are about reaching your goals or paying off debt or saving up money for whatever it is you want to save up for. This you can do in a spreadsheet, you can do in a piece of paper, whatever is going to allow you to remind yourself of how much money you actually have left to spend in that particular area. Broke it up into budget, actual, and difference. Budget is what you're expecting at the beginning of the month, the 31st or the 30th of the previous month. You know exactly how much you're budgeting for the next month, right? And then as you're spending the money, right, you can put in how much you're actually spending, so then you can see how much you have left. For example, if you know that your budget for groceries is 100, right, and in this scenario we've already spent 60, so then you're left with $40 for the month. Now, for example, if you have money left over in other areas, it doesn't mean that you should spend that in the other area. It means that now you have that extra money that you can now put into your savings or use it to pay, for additional like student loans or credit card payment and whatnot. Not to say that you should reallocate it because you have extra money.
Right.
Okay, so the main key point as you're doing your budget, you want to make sure that your total income minus your fixed expenses and your variable expenses, which is your total expenses, equals out to 0. So I'm gonna zero this out and this out. So essentially, meaning that every single dollar has been allocated. What I would recommend is once you figured out what you've been spending for the last 3 months, right? Then you can see how much left you have for savings, for example, right? And then committing. If you're left over with $100 for savings, committing every month to putting in the $100 at the beginning of the month so you don't end up touching it. Now, if you're in a position where, you realize that you actually have been overspending and now you're in a negative, now you got to figure out where can I make a headway and cut back on certain things, whether that's groceries, going out, maybe, for example, for me, I didn't travel for 3 years. Not recommending for anyone to do that, but that was like my kryptonite, travel, because I just love traveling, and when I go on vacation, I splurge and swipe and not realize that I've overspent because I never actually allocated a portion of it. If you feel like you're already spending very little on your variable expenses, okay, then from a long-term perspective, this makes sense to look into trying to find cheaper rent, or maybe switching cars so you don't have that big car note, or whatever it is that you need to work on.
Or looking to increase your income. That's going to be a huge component of it, right? Because if you're cutting down on all of your expenses, your fixed expenses, meaning like, for example, at the end of your lease, you got a cheaper apartment, and then your variable expenses, you're cutting it as low as you can, and you're still having trouble making headway when it comes to like savings and that sort of thing, then it's probably going to be that you need to increase the income that you have coming in.
Yeah.
The great thing about this is that we will make it downloadable. So if you're looking for a budgeting tracking tool and you think this one may fit the needs for you, then you can definitely download it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put that in the description below. And if you want another video about us actually putting in examples inside of this tracking tool of an actual budget, just so you can visually see it, we can definitely do that. If you want another video about negotiating raises or anything financial related, definitely let us know. We would love to be able to provide that content to you, or at least what we know and how it's worked best inside of our lives. So
yeah, and we're always here to help. So if you're not familiar with Google Sheets and you do want to download and you want to just have a quick overview of what it is, just ask. We're here to help. We're here to pass the blessing forward, and we hope that we are able to at least help you a little bit in your journey to becoming either debt-free, saving money, or reaching whatever financial goals you have in your life.
Right. Or just being wealthy.
That's why we named this I Am Wealthy Budget Sheet.
Awesome. So thank you for joining us, and we are out.
Stay blessed and highly flavored.
Bye.
Bye.